Hello, everybody. It's November 16, 2014. 14, listen to me. 2024. It's just a little bit after 10 p.m. It took me a couple of minutes because every time I clicked on live, I got this weird message. I think it was like third party interference, and I took a photo of it. The photo says camera can't be accessed because it's being used by another application. I can't even imagine what other application it was. I mean, unless it's been intercepted by creatures that are following me through my laptop. So, anyway, once again, it's November 16th, 2024. I'll wait a few minutes. And, last week I tried to add music in the background so that when you guys entered the chat, if I weren't speaking, you would know that I'm here. But for some reason, when I play music, I think it like overrides the microphone. So I wasn't able to do it last week. It didn't record on the playback and nobody could hear it. So when you enter the chat, if you could leave me a comment that you can hear me, that would be great. I'll wait for a couple more people to come in. I'm boiling water for a cup of coffee. Anyway, hope everybody's doing well. It'll probably take a few minutes for people to receive the notifications. You guys might have difficulty connecting the way I did when I received the error message that somebody else was using my laptop camera. I can't imagine who that could have been. So if you can hear me, if you're in the chat, I know some people will just call on the phone and you're not in the chat, you're just listening in the background. But if for some reason you're in the chat, if you could just leave me a comment that you can hear me. Hello, hello. I see 3 people. Please remember to hit the thumbs up. Hi, Carn Artist. Oh, good. I'm so glad you can hear me. Somebody intercepted my camera. I went to go live just like a couple of minutes before, and oh, good. I'm so glad. And I received this bizarre error message I've never seen before. I took a photo of it. It said, one second. It said, camera can't be accessed because it's being used by another application. I don't know. I've never seen that before. Whose other application except mine? I don't know. But I had to exit out a few tabs, and then I cleared the cache. I hope everybody's doing well on this Saturday night. I guess nobody else has anything to do except be here. I don't know. When I lived in New Jersey, I would go out to eat, even if it was by myself. Hi, Kathleen. How are you? Please remember to hit the thumbs up. Thank you. Hello, hello. It takes a while for people to receive notifications and stuff. And I should have mentioned it earlier. People forget. I forget. I forgot what day it was this morning when I woke up. I wasn't sure if it was Friday or Saturday. One day goes into the next. So at some point, I'm going to continue reading a little bit from Robert Duncan's book, How to Tame a Demon. And somebody asked me, like, why is it called a demon? Well, if you're a targeted person, I mean, the technology is absolutely demonic. And what they're doing to us is demonic. So I think it was an interesting title. I didn't like the cover. The cover is pretty threatening. Every day is Friday. Yeah, I used to look so forward to Friday, thinking, it's the weekend. But now I don't look forward to the weekends anymore because that's when these local losers amp up their vandalism and trespassing. It's like their second job if they actually have a first job. It's very demonic. And in literally until I became targeted, I never used that word demonic. I never thought of it. But for the 10 people that are listening, if you could hit the thumbs up, that would be helpful. Oh, by the way, last week when I did the live, it was automatically demonetized. So I asked YouTube to review it, and then they said it was okay. So then they monetized it again. Yeah. So sometimes they have these algorithms, or like it's partially AI and their keywords. Like if a word will come up, they'll just automatically demonetize it. So that if you ask for a human review, it helps sometimes. So yeah, if you could hit the thumbs up, that would be great. Well, if there are topics that you want to talk about, if you have questions, if you're hi, Radiant Butterfly, welcome, welcome. It's so good to see you. So if anybody has questions that you want answered, like if you're newly targeted, if you have questions about how this progresses, or questions about what it's like living in the middle of a national forest with a bunch of morons, feel free to ask the questions. But yeah, so 8 years. So you've been targeted for 8 years. Have you noticed, like, so when you say 8 years, is it 8 years that you've noticed, or in hindsight, like when you think about it, are you targeted longer than 8 years, or it's just 8 years that you realize that you are? Because usually they're surveilling you like a couple of years before, but a lot of people don't realize it, and then they'll start slowly with their targeting. Yeah. Yeah, it's good to see you. I know it's difficult for some people because this is Eastern time, and then with the time zone issue, you're very lucky that you caught on quickly. I did not know what targeting was. I just knew that the people that were approaching me on the street, I even told my lawyer at the time, it feels like a skit. It felt like people were play acting. Oh, you've been targeted, oh, for 48 years, 49 years? Oh, you poor thing. Well, maybe we all are. We just didn't realize it. I don't know. Some people say that they've been targeted their whole lives. I feel like we're watched our entire lives. And then they just choose to target us at certain times of our lives. Like if people rat on us for some reason, like they get pissed off about something we say. Hi there. Welcome, welcome. Please remember to hit the thumbs up when you come in. A microchip and implants information. Well, according to Sabrina Wallace and other people, they're not using the same kinds of microchips they utilized like a dozen years ago, where people actually can find their implants. They're using semiconductors and nanotechnology. And it's really hard to find. Like I have a microchip scanner because I have a cat rescue. So I invested in this, I don't know if it's $200 or $300 scanner back in the day. to scan for a microchip if I rescue animals. Yes, please hit the thumbs up. I see there are 8 people listening and 5 thumbs up. But I've used my scanner on my body and I can't find anything. Although I know I have things in my body. It's just that my particular scanner, which is older technology, is not picking it up. And just in a couple of minutes, I might have to get up for a minute. I'll let you know when. I have water boiling for a cup of coffee. So 8 years is a long time. I know, and I had no idea what targeting was. I knew what stalking was. I knew what stalking was by one individual was. So, Kathleen, do you live in an apartment building? Need a tomography scan. Tomography. I've not heard that word before. But I know that there's a woman, a targeted female in Canada named Bobby. I don't know if I can pronounce her last name properly. Petich. She's got a YouTube channel, which is SHP. Oh, thank you, Mikey. Thank you. And she has been able to locate a lot of things in her network and through the MAC addresses. I have a hard time following some of her work because she has an Android and I've got an iPhone, and all the apps that she recommends are associated with the Droid and not the iPhone. And the iPhone doesn't have the same types of apps. Yeah, the body area network, yes. Well, somebody published that whole thing a few years ago, what it looks like. I wish I could add photos to the live stream. I have to figure out, and it's just I don't have the extra time to delve into all this. There is some kind of software that I would have to download to kind of sync with the live stream so that I could share the screen or add photos or whatever. But I've got a very slow laptop. Doesn't have a lot of memory left, so I'm sort of fearful about downloading more apps and stuff. The MAC address is she has located medical testing facilities that are attached to her network. And I actually followed her when I first moved here, and I did locate somebody on my network then who just suddenly disappeared. It was the Pikeville Medical Center, and they specialized in vascular surgeries, heart surgery, vascular, and just ironically, I guess it was 2021, May 20th, when I woke up, somebody had performed a covert surgical procedure on my knee. And yes, I've got these scars to prove it. So, yes, I did locate this weird medical center that was attached to my network. That's 45 minutes away from here. So, yeah, it's called human trafficking for a reason. Non-investigative subjects on the watch list. Because we're test subjects. That's why they want to isolate the victim. A unique number that identifies the person and what frequency is used. Certain radio and microwave frequencies equals what corporation has access to you, military, star system, undersea system, etc. Yes, trafficking is more accurate. And then using the gang stalking term. Well, somebody on Quora, let me see if I could just pull it up. Use a different terminology. 1 second. Let's just find it quickly. Um, 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 um. Here, let me read this to you guys. Okay, so there was a question and answer on Quora, and the question was, could organized stalking really be a government-backed operation? Why would officials support such a program? The individual's name is Keith, responded in November 5. Domestic surveillance is organized stalking. Of course, domestic surveillance is government backed. This has been common knowledge for years. It has been exposed by the Senate's weaponization of the government committee. If you're unaware of this and are still talking about quote unquote gang stalking or quote unquote organized stalking, you have not been paying attention. So he's calling it domestic surveillance. Now, in my opinion, domestic surveillance would mean that they're surveilling the entire population. That may or may not be true, but there are gradations of how they're surveilling people. So let's see what you guys are saying here. Please remember to hit the thumbs up. I see that there are 15 people and only 5 thumbs up. Yes, the one thing about Bobby's channel, let me see if I can locate it. 1 second so you all can see what I'm talking about. I've been on her mailing list and communicating with her for years, but again, a lot of the software she uses is for a Droid and not an iPhone. So the iPhone doesn't have an equivalent, or at least one that's worked for me. And let me see if I could locate it here. One second. I think this is the channel. No, that's not it. I'm going to have to look for it another time. Let's see, Renata Jones. I found her on Eden's Living TV YouTube channel. I don't know who that is. The woman that I'm speaking about lives in Canada. Her name is Bobby, Bobbi, and she does a lot of this research through the MAC address and networking and using apps on her phone and stuff. And she speaks about it on her channel. Her channel got taken down once already, and I think she just started a new one. Now, who is Renata Jones? Raynetta. I'm subscribed to Eden's Living TV. If you guys can hit the thumbs up. Well, what I'm going to do, part of what I wanted to discuss is moving, relocating, how that's worked for individuals, if there are places, hot spots that were better or worse than others. And I just want to answer the question. And again, this is hearsay. This is what I heard from a subscriber. Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. I don't have a lot of time to do all this research. I would love to, but I've got so many animals to care for and stuff that's going on here. And then just creating these videos is kind of time consuming. But I'm so glad to hear that. Is is her YouTube channel her full name? Yeah, it's just very time consuming. And um I you know what it is too? I'm going to say the last few months, I guess with the election and everything, I've been just trying to keep up more on what's going on in the news. I never did before. I never listened to the I never listen I could care less about the news when I lived in New Jersey, but like the last few months or so, even maybe the last year, I've been listening more to the news and what's going on in the world and how it affects us. But the Raynetta Jones, hi, Battle for Your Brain. Welcome, welcome. Does she have her own channel, or is she was she interviewed on Eden Living TV? Because I know, I mean, I receive regular mail, like snail mail. One woman from Germany, one from Romania. So this is a worldwide program. It's not just the United States. And on my channel under the testimonies, one woman has moved around, and she was moved around in the Middle East, and it followed her wherever she went, and she's married. And then, of course, the United States is horrible. Oh, Rumble. Okay. Oh, well, that's an interesting Blackson Rise Spiritual University. Well, that's an interesting channel name. um, Let me just see if I can I copy that. Yes, let me copy it and send it to myself. So there are some states that are worse than others. One thing, I'm just going to send this to myself. You hear some silence here. I so wish I could play music for you guys to hear, but for some reason, when I play it, I can hear it, but you can't hear it, and it doesn't record. So again, I think I need some kind of software in order to do that. So let me just pull up this article again. And please remember to hit the thumbs up. And I'm going to have to turn off the boiling water soon before I read this. Robert Duncan has, in How to Tame a Demon, he had a section about moving. I look forward to other people's perspectives, because there are many other people that have traveled. I've only moved from one state to another. So let me just scroll down here. Let's see. I'm trying to find where this starts on his book here. It's so fortunate that these books are now published online. Well, I received a copy of a video on YouTube. It was allegedly an alien, like a real alien, that was being interrogated by our GOV. It was really horrible. I mean, a lot of what this alleged alien was saying was absolutely true. And the interrogation was just disgusting. Like the person who was interrogating this alien was just so arrogant and nasty. And every time the alien would say something like, you can't comprehend, you don't understand, you can't comprehend, this interviewer would zap him with microwaves until he'd like almost pass out. And it was just like skinny, hairless, the big eyes, the no nose, like no clothing kind of alien. But anyway, this alien said in response to a question, and the question was about the annihilation of the world and who is the individual who started all of this, blah, blah, blah. And the alien said that it was a half a century ago. And the half a century is 50 years. And he gave a date. And when you added the 50 years to the date that he gave, it brought you to the year 2014. And that is the year that Obama was elected president. So in his book here, he's like answering some questions. I guess they're common questions in the targeted community. One of the questions is, what does quote unquote crazy mean to the average person? Crazy as a word is generally used as a discrediting word by those who do not want to do the research to understand how the person of interest they are discrediting thinks. Oh, yeah, that's right. We're persons of interest because we're so interesting, and they're not. It is generally a word used by lazy thinkers. Many famous geniuses were classified as crazy by their colleagues, such as Einstein, Edison, and Galileo, and hundreds of others by lazy thinking people. Most of these types of people who use the word crazy were those who took 300 years to make them believe the earth wasn't flat and square. They exist today in the same proportions of the population when discussing technology. They wait to see it on their hypnotube and see what those around them believe. The discrediting word, quote unquote, dumb, can at least be proven by IQ tests as a standard of society. As a standard of society. Crazy can mean emotional or unorganized thoughts or irrational beliefs. It appears that when the average person uses the word crazy, they mean something they don't understand. In some subcultures, crazy means to be eccentric or wild. According to the DSM manual on psychiatric illnesses, over 20%, now increasing to 40% of the Americans, are classified with one or more mental illnesses at some point in their lives, which is total BS. Let me tell you, it's total BS. It almost appears as if they're defining normal as an emotionally flat and self centered personality as a prototype of mental health. That sounds more like sociopathy. Perhaps those behaviors that against the person's best interests and survival instincts, such as charitable acts or being a soldier, is considered mentally ill and crazy. Unfortunately, in today's age, people who don't understand ELF, microwave, and biological resonance weapons believe that victims of such weapons are crazy when they talk about them. The psychiatry community has done a great disservice to the credibility of their profession for not taking the time to understand these technologies and their possible uses. The natural reaction to being tortured with invisible rays gets classified as crazy, with the target's extreme emotional reaction, which is quite appropriate for what they're going through. And anyone who speaks about these weapons are, quote unquote, conspiracy theorists. Understand the propaganda. The people who partook in the systems, if they're still alive, when it's revealed, will never apologize for it. In order not to look stupid, will say that they knew nothing all along. Practical advice: forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Another question is, I think they're slandering me, are they? Slander can be done whether government sponsored or not. Generally speaking, not unless you're working for a political cause will they do that. Well, that's not true. That's so totally not true. Do any of you guys work for a political organization? Okay, let me read some of yours. Brian, too, has traveled a lot of places, and he says that when he was in China and Russia, the organized stalking was minimal. I heard from a targeted person who moved to Japan and said that because of the language barrier, that the following around, the stalking was very minimal. And just to answer your question, and also please hit the thumbs up, guys. Um, yeah, I never worked for a political organization. Never. In fact, like I said, back in New Jersey, I didn't even listen to the news most of the time. But yes, that when you move to a country where you don't speak the language, that the stalking is minimal. But anyway, somebody asked me a question about Brian too. Now, again, this is hearsay. I don't know if it's actually true, but somebody commented that they haven't heard from him in a while, and neither have I. I'm on his mailing list. Oh, really? You saw T.I. in Japan claim that they were heavily gang stalked there. Well, the person in Japan, are they Japanese, Billy? I think I'm just referring, like, if an American moves to another country where they don't speak the language, that there may be. Yeah, Sweden, that's what it is. Sweden. I got the country wrong. That's what you said, that you heard he was detained in Sweden. Because he was on his way to another country that they didn't want him to go to. How absurd. Several weeks ago. Nobody's heard from him. Like, he has a Rumble or BitChute channel, and I'll usually receive, an alert that he's posted something, but I haven't. Yeah, I've never worked for a political organization or a government agency, or a city or a state job. I've never worked for any of those kinds of companies. Please remember to hit the thumbs up, guys. Yep, also, pain is now flagged as a mental illness. Pain? Oh, you mean like if you stub your toe, or if you fall and you experience some pain, that's considered to be a mental illness? They'll do anything for money, I'm telling you. They have to label everything. Let's see, what does he say in this? Slander can be done whether government sponsored or not. Generally speaking, not unless you work for a political cause will they do that. It is usually that your friends and family notice that you're acting paranoid and that your language can cause them to act differently towards you. Well, I'm going to say that that's absolutely not true. At least for me, when I moved here, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody. I didn't speak to anybody. Everybody approached me. I was literally living in my car in my driveway. Question is, are they blackmailing me? Unless you're in a political position or have ambition to become one, it is an empty threat. They will threaten to set you up by local authorities, but generally this doesn't happen. It's usually just an empty threat that the intelligence agencies give, like, we will unalive your family if you tell anyone what we've done to you. No, George Bush Jr. nor Obama know what's going on in terms of how their draconian policies are actually implemented and abused. They're merely figureheads and puppets. They get blamed for their administration, but they are clueless and programmed. The idea of threats is to increase the target's stress and panic. The police will not believe you, and there's nothing they can do to protect you from a technology this sophisticated. They would have become scientists and not police officers if they could understand it. There are many pawns in this war game, he says. Let's see. He goes on to say, they prey off all fears. Remember, they study pure evil according to the human construct. Imagine waking up in the morning and saying, oh, well, what are you going to do? What am I going to study today? Oh, I'm going to study pure evil. I mean, who wants to live like that? Paranoia is purposely induced through brain entrancements and organized stalking and other gaslighting techniques. The internet has created an open door for people with opinions. Trolls on the internet like to stir things up using slander and libel when they can. Generally, there isn't anything you can do about it. It would be difficult to sue any of them. Be sure not to release personal information on the internet. Yeah, like it's virtually almost impossible. The trolls will use any information against you to slander you or steal your identity. You will want to tell your life story on the internet, but leave out specific information. One technique trolls and stalkers use on the internet is to use slander in hopes you will feel the need to respond out of anger, thereby releasing more information about yourself to be used against you later. Well, that's interesting. I think we've all done that. I know I definitely have responded. Being on radio or the internet brings you into the spotlight. This is the decision that every TI must make. More often your name appears, the more often you will become a target, even from other TIs. Well, yes, I've experienced that. Some people feel that their story of horrific suffering needs to be told for posterity's sake. But if you put your story on the internet, potential employers might find it and judge you for that. But if you do nothing, you are furthering the suffering of others for not trying to bring to light what is going on. There is power in numbers, but you are damned if you do and damned if you don't. And many TIs suspect that subliminal messaging about their character is done to their friends and family or possible employers. What can you do about it? Sit a good friend down and ask them if they heard anything. Google yourself on the internet. I suspect most of the suspicion about slander is from V2K. Well, that's absolutely not. Well, I can't say that for myself. My neighbors were spewing stuff about me, and I never even met my neighbor next door. She was the one who was trespassing my property, posting no trespassing signs, and telling me I'm crazy, all these other things and stuff. I'd never met her before, so I don't know. Remember, no one is exempt from others' opinions. Imagine if you were the president, half the people always hated you. People misunderstand intentions and communications all the time. Remember how many rumors you heard about somebody in the playground, in the playground. At best, rumors may hurt some of your personal relationships. It would be difficult to prove someone is going to your potential employer and libeling you unless they say something. Well, I know for a fact, because I've been told, that my neighbors have specifically told some of my workers that I don't pay them to not work for me. So that was a lie. So that's why when I find out the truth about my neighbors, I have no problem speaking the truth about my neighbors live. You know, like the one that had the affair with the pastor. He. But anyway, let's move on. At best, rumors may hurt some of your personal relationships. It would be difficult to prove. Most people who believe the target assumes that he or she deserved it. He or she sinned in some way. This is called the shame game or the blame game. It's sort of like when I showed my former friend Sue-Ann in New Jersey the photos of my house break-in. And now, mind you, she is a volunteer firefighter, a certified death investigator, which means that she analyzes crime scenes and blood spatter patterns, and even filed a patent for that technology. So I figured if anybody knew what was happening to me, it would be her, right? So she's looking through my photos of my house being broken into, and she turns to me and says, "Who did you piss off?" Talk about the blame game, the shame game, right? So instead of being sympathetic that my house was broken into, I'm the one that's being accused for causing my own break in. So there you have, some people are in the know about what's going on, and some people like me had no idea, was clueless that such a thing existed. Remember that the majority of people are still in the matrix of the propaganda and lies. They do not know what is going on, like me. You must see it for yourself, Morpheus from the movie The Matrix. Know thy audience when speaking. One type of speech to communicate your circumstances does not necessarily work for every audience. So I'm going to, let's just scroll up here again. See if I can find that moving. I wanted to discuss the moving because I saw it here, but now I'm on a different page. 1 second. Let me just go back into the chat, see what you're talking about. Oh, absolutely. I think Tulsi Gabbard is going to address the issue with the FISA 702. I can't wait. I really like her. So I'm just reading out loud some of what you're saying here. What do you think the impact of Trump mentioning FISA courts will have on the gang stalking awareness? Russ Dizdar, who passed away now, he managed to reveal all before being unalived. It should be interesting to see how police and military will react when they realize this program is real. There is really no need for police and judiciary coming. Implants will also report real-time and predictive thoughts. Let's see. I remember you talking about, oh yes, Sue-Ann and her accusatory tone, yes. Her being a firefighter is automatic red flag, gang stalker. Oh, thank you, Fred. Yes, good health to all targeted people. Yes, who did I piss off? Oh, I can't. Well, I mean, come on, guys. I'm I'm in my 60s at this point. Do you think I only pissed off one person in my entire life? Come on. There's probably a string of people that I pissed off just for being me, not even for speaking. I could piss somebody off. I could piss somebody off like back when I was working out at the gym. I would piss people off because they weren't going to the gym as often as I was or as flexible. Yeah, I can certainly piss people off just by being curious. I'm a curious person. I like to ask questions. Some people don't like to be asked questions, and they certainly don't like to be reported to the ethics committee when you fire your lawyer for not getting you a divorce after 3 years. So let's see. I hope they fired. Oh yes, Stacy Plackett, the Democrat who defended FISA 702 citizens torture as national security. I cannot stand this national security BS. Karen Stewart, in almost all of her interviews that are still online, has said repeatedly that these intelligence agencies have not prevented not one shooter. Well, we all know why, because they created them, but that's a whole nother story entirely. We can't say that here because I just can't say that here, right? But, look at what happened with the Batman guy. He was a PhD student in neuroscience. Why would they select somebody like him? And what about this? Just more recently, we had this crazy guy in Kentucky here shooting people that were driving by on the road, and then he just flees into the woods. He puts the weapon down, he flees into the woods. Nobody can find him. I mean, come on. They could track me here on this property. I could be anywhere on all these acreages. They know exactly where I am, but they couldn't find that guy who goes traipsing into the woods, just like they couldn't find Brian Laundrie after he unalived uh her name just escaped me now. My goodness. The beautiful little YouTube creator. I've considered that. Yeah, I've definitely, Kathleen, I've definitely considered that because I would say that the most targeted person in this country over the last 4 years has been him. And it was made public for everybody to see, but most people didn't see it for what it was, that he was being targeted. They actually believed the lies that were being perpetrated against him. So I wonder, you have to wonder, since he was seriously targeted, will he take us seriously too? Or perhaps he'll perform an investigation into the watch list. I think that would be the more likely thing to do, is to investigate, subpoena, FOIA request every name on the list, why they're there, how old they are, male and female, how long they've been on the list, why can't they get off the list? Those are the questions. And this bullshit in the name of national security, I cannot even stand hearing that anymore. Like when I FOIA requested the FBI to see if my name was on the list, which of course I know that I am. Hi, Ace of Cups. Welcome, welcome. Please, everybody, remember to hit the thumbs up. But I received a letter back very quickly, actually. And they thanked me for my letter, my inquiry, and they said, well, we cannot confirm or deny that your name is on any list. And we can't do that in the name of national security. So like they couldn't confirm that I was or was not. Yeah, Homeland Security. What an oxymoron that is, right? Homeland Security. Well, if anybody's been up to date on what's going on in North Carolina after Hurricane Helene, nobody is helping those people except the people. Not Homeland Security, not FEMA, not the military, nobody. In fact, they're doing everything possible to unalive those people, keep them from rebuilding, not dropping off food, not dropping off water. Even the cadaver dogs going over there are dropping dead from being poisoned from whatever chemicals are running in the mud and the water there. You defund everyone and start over again. Well, that's the way I see it. Back in the day, I was a corporate human resources manager, and I was in charge of hiring and firing people, interviewing them and hiring and firing people. And if people didn't do their jobs, you'd have a conversation with them and ask them why they couldn't do their jobs. Was it too difficult? Is this something you don't understand? Perhaps this is the wrong job for you, et cetera, et cetera. And then you give them a warning. And then they sign a little form and say, yes, we've had this conversation. And then, another month goes by or whatever, and then they're still not doing their job. And you have another conversation with them, right? And then you make them sign another little sheet of paper that you've had this conversation. And by the third time, if they're not doing their job, then you call them in and say, I'm sorry, it's not working. It's not working. You're going to have to find another job, and this is your 1 week or 2 weeks notice. Bye. And why can't we do that with these government positions? I don't understand. I mean, isn't it at will? Yes. Okay, so let's see what you're saying here. Someone will tend to label the TIs as crazy. It's a tactic used when they really don't know anything about you and is being part of the organized targeting and them being a perpetrator. Absolutely. Well, that's absolutely true. Yes. And yes, defund Homeland Security and the I'm not going to be able to say that. I won't be able to say that. But I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying there. Why would an old woman be on this list unless you understand organized asset stripping? Of course, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Yes. Because why do they target older people? Well, think about this for a minute. You could target a 20-year-old, right? Now, how long has a 20-year-old worked? How many 20-year-olds have accumulated assets or a home? Most 20-something-year-olds that have gone to college have amassed huge university debt. They've got car loans. They may or may not be living with their parents. They don't have anything for you to asset strip other than debt. So then when you get up into the 40s and 50s and obviously the 60s, those people have worked a lot longer. They're entitled to Social Security. They're entitled to benefits. They've worked, they've put money into the quote unquote system. They've purchased property. Maybe they have investments, right? So listen, if you are a greedy psychopath, would you target a 20-something-year-old or a 50-something-year-old? And of course, why not it be a woman instead of a man? Yeah, well, the Masons, don't get me started on those creepos. We have more than, I think they own the entire town that I live in. There are 3 of those lodges here. There's only under 800 people that live here. And we've got 3 Masonic lodges. So much for our First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment rights. They're using their children to harass targets. That means that target is not a threat. You know what? That is an excellent perspective. I never considered that. If they're using children to harass a target, then obviously the target is not a threat. It's not harmful. Because why would somebody send a child, like a 12-year-old, 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, to harass a target if they didn't already know that the target was not harmful at all? Really, that's a really good point. Yes, we are prey, and they're predators. Right. They're pops. The Scottish Rite Lodge in our country will be the drug road, and the other lodges will be accounting and security lodges for the. Yes. What happened to the Civil Rights Act, HIPAA, or the Anti-Torture Status, 18 USC Section 2340A? I don't know. It doesn't apply. Oh, that's another thing that really bothers me, is how they claim that there are no laws that apply to targeted people. Why is that? Oh, goodness. All right. Well, I'm just going to read this out loud for people that are just listening. Have I tried to fly? Yes, I did. After my mother was unalived, I flew from here to New York. I flew to New York. Yep. My taxi was delayed. The flight was delayed. Oh, no, I was not blocked from flying. No, I flew to New York. And in fact, when I went through the TSA, these days it used to be where you just have to take your shoes off, but they wanted everybody to take their socks and shoes off. And I mean, I hate like walking barefoot. Imagine walking barefoot where all those people have trampled. I mean, I think that's just so disgusting, but they want to make you walk around there barefoot. But so I walked through the scanner, and the scanner went off. I had no jewelry on, but it went off. And they made me go through again a couple of times, and it kept going off. I mean, I know exactly where, I'm not going to say it. I know exactly where it went off, and they showed me, and they looked, and they couldn't find anything, but it went off. So let me see what you're saying here. What about the violations of the international law, Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Article 1, 3, 5, 12, and 19. Well, that's true. You can't schedule anything ahead because they will set up a skit show every time and make your reservation impossible. Remember the Scottish Rite Lodge regarding the. Well, I'm not going to say some of this stuff, but I'm reading it during President Clinton. And Free is saying, most of the time when I go to the gym, they close the pool for some reason or other. Oh, that's interesting. They don't want you in the pool. It was revealed that Scottish Rite Lodges is the road used for the. Yes. Interesting. I mean, I learned so much from you guys because I'm not a traveler. I don't live in another country. What about International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which is ICCPR, Articles 7, 17, and 26? That's really interesting about the Scottish Rite Lodge. So, before I left New Jersey, I've said this before, and I know I sound ridiculous sometimes. I had no idea what the FBI or the CIA did, so I bought a book on the CIA, and I started reading it and about how they work with the mafia and the drug cartels, but they didn't like work to how do I prevent it. They weren't working to prevent it from happening, if you get my drift. So, I've never seen that. So, yeah, so that's the first I heard that, that agency was involved with that. I'm totally clueless. So I was one of those Americans that were just clueless. I don't watch TV, didn't listen to the news, didn't know what they did. I didn't vote. You agree with the the Scottish wrong. Yeah, the Scottish wrong. Like I call the Freemasons the Three Masons because they do everything in threes. These are violations of the Geneva Convention's Common Article 3. It prohibits cruel treatment and torture of persons not actively engaged in combat. This includes the intentional infliction of psychological suffering, dehumanization, denial of autonomy, and systemic torture violate this baseline humanitarian protection. Well, that's interesting about the drugs. I mean, I tend to agree with that, but they don't even have to engage in those illegal substances because they're doing it now with all the legal substances, Ritalin, Concerta, Adderall, um, uh, psychoactive drugs, drugs for bipolar disorder, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, thyroid, whatever it is, they've got a drug for it. And every one of them causes very severe negative side effects when utilized over time. Yeah, some people call them freak masons. There's a YouTube creator that his whole channel is about the Freemasons, and that's what he calls them. He calls them freak masons. So, Battle for Your Brain says, as well as violations under United Nations anti-torture framework and violations of UN Convention Against Torture, UNCAT. I remember there was a commercial, and every time it would come on, it was just so bizarre. And it was for a drug called Lunestra, like Luna, like the lunar cycles, like Luna, the moon, but the Estra. And then you have this elderly couple and they're smiling and they're talking to each other. And you've got this cute little music in the background. Then you see butterflies at the bottom of the screen, and the butterflies are fluttering around. And this is before I realized that like this is MK Ultra stuff, right? Butterflies in the background. But as this music is playing, at the very bottom, in the tiniest print that's scrolling on the screen, is all the negative side effects, including death. Why would you want to take something with a side effect that would unalive you when you could just deal with your symptoms and take something, herbs or fast or do something else? Research what it is. The only reason I go to a doctor is for them to tell me what's wrong with me so that I can go and do what I need to do for myself and look it up. Or in the case of the assault to my right forearm by some kind of laser that cut a triangle, a perfect triangle, about an inch wide in my right forearm, and then I had to get it bandaged. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yes, I mean that kind of makes sense. Well, and also, once people are dumbed down, with the drugs to dumb down the population, like with what they're spraying in the skies, and the food supply, which is horrible. Like, our country is horrible food. Um, they're making a lot of money on dumbing down the population. So it's not just about dumbing down the populations, it's about dumbing them down and profiting off of them. Society is run by vampires that can't die, so they need everyone else miserable like they are. Well, it's really interesting because uh it was that guy, Onion Head Andrew, or I think that's what he's called. He spoke about, for the guys to shave your head because your hair acts like an antenna. But he also mentioned about eating garlic and onions as being like a preventative, that it really helps. And David A said that he started eating the garlic and it helped him. And then it occurred to me, and historically, garlic has been used to ward off vampires. People would hang like bulbs of garlic outside of their front doors. Maybe that's what we all need to do, is hang garlic around, aside from eating it. The rise of the fort. Yeah, well, some people have said that if Trump weren't voted into office, that we have a clear path to communism, and that bringing him into office just postpones it another 4 years or something. I don't know. It feels like communism to me, the way our country is run these days. Please remember to hit the thumbs up. I see there are 21 people in the chat and only 12 thumbs up. Yeah, the vampires, they suck the life out of you. They're addicted to chaos. They suck the life out of you. And, like when I was growing up, there was one of my favorite TV shows. It was sort of like a soap opera. It was called Dark Shadows. I remember running home from school to watch Dark Shadows. And there was this guy, Barnabas. He was like the vampire. And does anybody remember Dark Shadows? You guys are all younger than me. The Nazis are vampires too. All the blood shed in the history fed the vampire lords. Well, I don't know if I could say it. I don't even know what you can and can't say on YouTube anymore. But let me just phrase it this way so that you get it. So when you're talking about how all the blood shed in history fed the vampire lords, okay, I'm going to focus on that word, BLOOD. And the way it's the way it's being used, like for certain celebrities, and young people. I can't even say it. When you get like adrenaline rush? You ever get an adrenaline rush? But anyway, it seems like that's it. I didn't want to say the word. That's the word. Okay, I don't know if I wanted to say it. I don't know if that's one of those words that get flagged. But yes, and a lot of celebrities use it. Allegedly, it keeps them younger, and it's a drug, sort of like a cocaine-like properties. Yeah, the Lucier venom. All toxic people are vampires. Well, they're addicted to chaos, and that's what they inflict upon targeted people is chaos. Even if they're not around, like the local criminals have not been around. They've been really quiet. But it doesn't mean that they're not around, trespassing my property and vandalizing in every which way. Like they unalived a possum and stuck it face down in the county creek. And it just kind of reminds me, they like to position dead animals. They pose them. I mean, it's very sick. They're very sick. They want to get your reaction to what happened. I mean, I don't generally like possums, but I felt bad for the possum. And then if I felt bad for me because I had to drag it out of the county creek and then put it in a box and drag it to my fire pit. What am I going to? I'm not going to bury a possum. And besides, the thing weighed like 30 pounds. Nobody told me a possum weighed so much. Yeah, so the way you were talking about the bloodshed, you have to wonder if war and the bloodshed is a ritual to feed their god, Lucifer. And I'm just going to get up because I just remember that I have water boiling. Who's this probably boiled away on my stove? 1 second. And then when I listen to other channels that talk about the history of this, like these bloodshed rituals have been going back for decades and decades and decades. I'm just reading what you're writing here. The annihilated Jerusalem and walked in their blood up to their knees. Yes, ward feed Lucifer, or what is that? Evil. They feed evil. It runs deep to Sirius and Osiris. Well, I think these people, they need to just stay amongst themselves and let the rest of us live our lives in peace because we don't really want anything to do with them. Yes, yes. It is hard to know how much is science and spiritual. But all I know is that the use of technology to harm people, to dumb them down, goes back decades. So, in Robert Duncan's book, How to Tame a Demon, a short practical guide to organized intimidation, stalking, and electronic harassment, um, These are some of the electronic assault symptoms. I mean, most of you guys know it already, but for those of you who don't, there are many common symptoms of DEWs, directed energy weapons, microwave weapons, and EEG induction weapons. Bodily pains and sensations that have no human experience analog, fatigue, involuntary speech like Tourette syndrome, bee stings, projection of odd sounds, limbs jerking, sleep deprivation, headaches, teeth pain, eye pain, heat, genital assaults, heart palpitations, etc. In the lab, even parts of the brain could be stimulated to feel a spiritual presence in kind warmth, and the opposite has been documented. One major difficulty is sorting out what are naturally occurring illnesses and those induced by technology. All these illnesses can be mimicked and induced by electronic assaults. The TI begins to believe all pains and illnesses are caused directly or indirectly by these weapons. There are a few problems with that. The TI will not try common medications, which might alleviate the pain, and secondly, they begin to believe these people and the weapons are all powerful. The practical advice for the TI is to try the obvious medical advice first, and if that doesn't work, try electronic assault shielding. This is also true with organized stalking. There are common criminals, which should not be confused with government agent stalking techniques. What is the frequency? This question was asked by two TIs that beat up Dan Rather, the news reporter, because they believed they were being media stalked by him. They were just Manchurian candidates sent after him, probably because he started to reveal too much truth about conspiracy theories and ended up being true. They asked him, "What is the frequency, Kenneth?" The question all targeted individuals end up asking about the government's EM bio-neuroweapons. The problem is that there is not just one frequency, it's a full spectrum. There are some frequencies that manipulate the human nervous system that are specific to the magnetic and electric field strength around the target. There are some that are related to SARS, specific absorption rates. There are ultra-wide frequency bands and those that hop. There are some that have resonances to the average size of the brain cells or entire organs. Some frequencies are used just for surveillance and others to inject energy into the brain patterns to control them. The list goes on. The frequency question is posed incorrectly. Even Sony has 4 patents to use ultrasonics to manipulate perception for video games. Well, that's interesting, huh? I think most video games are a danger to society. That's just my 2 cents. I will give 2 examples and show how the magnetic and electric fields around the target can be solved using a couple surveillance technologies and simultaneous equations. I'll show that there are specific frequencies that can manipulate the human nervous system using reverse MRI, reverse ESR, and ion cyclotron resonant heating. Even microwaves have been shown to alter brain function based on frequency pulses and intensity, both in American and Russian university literature. These equations will be revealed in Project Soul Catcher Volume 1. Question is, how do they keep a lock on the target and be able to see through walls? This is a very common question, can only be understood through advanced physics. For the simple disbeliever, you only need to look at how many bars you have on your mobile phone and how the telecom companies can triangulate on them. Understand for yourself how that works. Lower the electromagnetic frequency, deeper the penetration into the earth and structures. How can one communicate to nuclear submarines? The TI's next question will be, how does the technology tune into one person and not another? How do mobile phones do it? We all have unique resonances and signatures. Dr. Becker stated that the brain has 3,000 Q factor, quality factor, which means that each brain has a very specific band of widths for influence, like mobile phones. How many products do you own that have an RFID chip in them? You would be surprised at the answer. The brain itself is a very advanced specific encryption code, but with some generalizations of emotional cluster signatures. Only the sender and receiver know the private key encryption with the particular cognitive model. Get all the cognitive models and you will have all the brain codes. For example, NASA tracks 26,000 golf ball sized pieces of space junk around the Earth's orbit. Can 7 billion unique brain signatures be tracked on Earth? I'm reading your comments now. Yes, the video games. They use video games to help map our brains and to condition people. And yes, you're being studied 24/7 since birth. Yes, and also I believe that because they know astrology, they know your potential at birth. They know what your destiny is. They know your birth chart. And I believe if you're followed, maybe tracked from birth. But I don't think I don't think that everybody is targeted from birth. I think people are watched. It's just, I'm just speculating. And let's see what else we've got here. I wanted to read that section on the moving. He has something really interesting to say. And let me see if I can find it. Because most of this book, How to Tame a Demon, is like a question and answer book. Okay, here's a question. Can psychopathic personalities be created using this technology for false flag purposes? Unfortunately, this is one of the most important tests of the technology. It usually involves killing their father or someone that the target very much loves. This is the ultimate test of the power of remote neural influencing technologies. There are many examples of this for the researchers of this technology. Politicians don't seem to have a clue. Our research group found TIs that were programmed to kill famous politicians like Hillary Clinton. We don't get into the details of programming and deprogramming methods in this book. And once again, this is for educational purposes. I'm actually reading a book written by a doctor. Anyone reading this book knows the US government has been hijacked by now. The programmed assassins, if successful, are easily written off as psychopaths. This creates a false sense of terrorism and gives the government provocation to disarm the citizens. Fear and false flag operations work on the simple-minded population throughout history. If you are of non-violent character, remember your core values. If a rage is put into you, sleep it off and try to keep guns away from you if you are controlled. Some mood stabilizing drugs can help defend against a psychotronic emotional attack. And remember that voice morphing and transformation is common to misdirect the mind control subject to a particular target of their remote torture. Question: what are the long-term effects of these energies and experimentation on me? He responds, the most deadly effects are on the mind itself. Interfering with a person's decision-making processes lowers their survival abilities and even their will to live. Of course, with all energy exposure, there is an increased risk of various types of cancers. There are many secondary and tertiary long-term health effects of prolonged stress caused by the torture and experimentation, including heart arrhythmias. Do they have the ability to record all my memories from life until death? Not yet, but they're working on it diligently. There's a chip called Soul Catcher that is supposed to do this and then be put into a baby and basically create immortality for that person. Imagine an Einstein or a Hitler living forever. Some people will do anything to cheat death. Can they insert languages or skills into the mind of the target? To some extent, they can insert skills into the target that were not there previously studied. There is accelerated education using aspects of the technology and a shared hive mind with participants. Obviously, there is much funding of research for this capability. What are some long-term effects of torture, trauma, and stress induction? It depends on the person and any programming done at the time. In general, torture sensitizes the animal or person to violence. Several of the Guantanamo Bay torture subjects who were released appeared to be sluggish schizophrenics, according to medical doctors. For many tortured people, they become timid and empty of hope. It can cause a passive aggressive condition too. The mental scarring becomes worse based on the duration and intensity of torture methods employed. Nightmares and flashbacks are common later in life. Behaviors such as alcoholism and smoking are common ways that targets cope with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, if they survive. Stress coping mechanisms, psychotherapy, support groups, and desensitization methods sometimes work to some extent. With TIs, the torture and torment often never ends if nothing new is tried. Surrounding oneself with positive, supportive people and meditation helps. There are some drugs being experimented with that reduce PTSD, but they must be taken during the trauma. One controversial doctor is experimenting with MDMA to alleviate PTSD effects. Oh, thank you so much, Free. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the super chat. Let's celebrate their fifth super on live stream. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much for donating to the cat rescue. I really appreciate it because the cat food has gone up ridiculously, and nobody told me when I got chickens that they ate cat food. So I feed my cats, the outside cats, in the morning. I've got 3 cats that live outside. So I feed them first. And then I let the birds out. And with one group of birds, they just take off and run to the cat food, start eating all the cat food. So yeah, they'll wolf down that cat food like in a heartbeat. Um, the Great Deception, yes. After all the Masons were done with me, they sent a Secret Service agent who asked me oddly, "Do I have your permission?" Well, I was like, "Huh?" Probably clone me. Asked your permission for what? If somebody ever asks your permission, you say no. Yes, the guineas love cat food. In fact, when I go into the cats building to feed them in the morning, the guineas follow me because they know that whatever the cat's left over in the dish, I bring outside, and they wait for the cat food. And they know, like, I'll even yell to them, cat food, and they just come running and eat cat food. They love cat food. They eat the dry and the wet cat food. Like I am shocked at how much dry cat food I go through. Like I'll empty like a 28-pound bag, and literally in days it's gone, and I'm replacing it again and again. And then what happens is, like before I started the live, I hear something on my porch, and there's a mama raccoon and 3 little babies, and they're eating cat food. So the guineas, the chickens, the raccoons, the possums, and the fox all eat cat food. They do. Yes. Who would have thought? Yeah, I have to rename the cat food to guinea food. Meanwhile, I tell them all the time, I say, I hired you to the guineas. I hired you to eat bugs. Like they have more than enough bugs to eat around here. And they do. They eat like tons of bugs, but it's like I hired them to eat bugs and find stuff, meaning find like people on the property and yap. I did not hire them to eat all the cat food. They're funny. They're funny birds. They're not the smartest, they're not the smartest birds, but they're very funny. And they flock together like in little groups. Yes. Well, the one thing is knowing that if I have cat food, I could feed everybody on the property. I can't feed everybody on the property with bird food, with the bird seed. So, and they love their bird seed too. Like they eat sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, and then there's like this mash that I add water to and some herbs and stuff and raisins and hard boiled eggs, and they get that mash every day. I call it their treat. They come running for their treat. But they literally they drive me crazy sometimes. And the roosters chasing after the hens. It's very stressful sometimes. I have too many roosters. I'm scrolling up so I could see what you guys were talking about when I was reading. We are goods on the way bill shipping manifest bird. Oh yes, I've heard about that. There was a YouTube creator, a YouTube channel called Justinian Deception. And he was so good. Like, I was following him from New Jersey, and then he just sort of stopped posting, and I found out that they were targeting his partner. So he had to stop posting. He was like giving too much like useful information away about the birth and the waybill and exactly what you were saying. They really set up, like the people who set up this country, like the Rockefellers and all those rich people, they really screwed us. They just really screwed everybody. The great deception is that when we were born, our birth certificate, we call it we were born, it was our birth certificate. But they're using like admiralty law, like the law of the ocean, and that they Berth. Oops, it's my alarm that just. Oh, wait a minute. So I just got notification that that woman Bobby from Canada posted a new video. So now I can find her channel. 1 second. Let me find it for you guys. 1 second. Yeah, she just posted another video on light beam antenna, ham operator, IP trace to a doctor in a TI digger's device. So there's a friend of hers who's been digging into her device, and they found a ham operator attached to her phone. And now I just got another alert. Emergency, cyber attack shuts down largest grocery retailer on the East Coast. All right, let me just find her a second. Here it is. 1 second. So I'm getting all these alerts. Cyber attack shuts down largest grocery retailer on the East Coast. Oh, here she is. 1 second. And I'll post the link in the chat for you guys. Okay, just posted. So I just posted the link to the YouTube creator SHP. She's a targeted female in Canada who's been finding a lot of people who are attached to her through her phone. And let's see. Yeah, so let me see who this large one is. So this is a Patrick Humphrey, who I follow, the largest grocery on the East Coast. Deliveries have stopped. Well, that's not good. I don't know what the largest grocery retailer on the East Coast is, but I'll have to look into it when we close this off, and which I'll be doing in another couple of minutes. Now, I don't know. This is only a 3-minute video. I'm going to play it for SHP. Tell me if you can hear it. Okay, so she says that they're illegal LLCs on people's properties. I guess that's something I'll have to look into. Illegal LLCs on people's properties. So it was only a 3-minute long video. Most of her videos are brief, but if you go to her channel and scroll through, you'll find some interesting information, especially if you have an Android phone, because most of the apps that she downloads and is able to locate information on her phone is for the Droid, not for the iPhone. So anyway, thank you everybody for joining in the chat. I hope you were able to learn something. If you ever have questions or comments, you can always leave them after the chat is closed. After the live stream is closed, you can email me at alternativehomesteading@gmail.com. If you have a testimony that you'd like to share, like in writing, because I'm not set up for a Zoom call yet. Like most of the free Zooms only allow you to record like 40 or 45 minutes and then you're cut off. You can start up again. You can record another one and kind of blend them together and stuff, but it gets to be a little bit complicated. I really want to learn how to merge videos so that I could have more than one video. So if I want to put a short video of something that I'm talking about, and merge it together, I don't know how to do it. I don't know if there's an additional software that I need. I'll have to watch some more YouTube videos on merging videos and stuff on a laptop. But thank you everybody, and thank you for the generous donation. And please remember to hit the thumbs up. It helps the channel grow, and it prevents, at least gets up there in the algorithms, because I have so many people downvoting the videos that they do it automatically. They're not listening to the video at all. They're just downvoting. Oh, you're so welcome, con artist. Thank you for joining in and for all the very useful information, because I learn a lot from you guys too. I live here in the United States, and then some of you guys live in other countries, and you have different perspectives and different knowledge about things. It's always downvoted when you arrive. I know. I will post a video, and this is like almost all the time. I'll post a video, and I'll click the thumbs up. So there's one. So there's one thumbs up. And I'll look at it, and it's like it's downvoted to 50 or 60%, and it's like it just got up there. Like, is there somebody that's automatically just downvoting everything? So so if you could hit the thumbs up, that's great. But anyway, I'm going to end the live stream now. Thank you all for joining in. I hope you have a great rest of the evening on your side, and I will talk to you guys soon.